Hello and welcome to Jimmy's Fem. This is James. I'm seated on a park bench on the South Perth foreshore, sort of looking towards the city at a ferry crossing the river. And I'm joined by...
Jennie Feyen. Feyen?
Yeah.
I think you say Feyen is how you're supposed to pronounce her surname. People struggle with it, but it's just 5
Jennie
letters.
Feyen.
Feyen.
There's a couple of swans here, just dipping their heads down into the water and pulling up whatever they do. Whatever they pull up out of the water, or weeds or something, I don't know. Making little arches of the water. Hi Jenny, how are you?
Pretty good. This is really lovely weather, and I love being by the water and looking at the swans doing their thing.
It's sort of magic hour-ish.
It is, yeah.
Nice sunny day, and it's in winter. We're recording on, was it the 10th of August?
That's
2019.
right. 2019.
For time travellers coming from the future or past. Hi Jenny, who are you? What are you?
What am I? Oh, I don't know what I am. Every day I wake up and feel differently. I am a woman, and I make films and installations, and I listen to a lot of music, and I watch more YouTube than I should. It's probably...
This is interesting discovery.
An unhealthy amount. And as I said before, I love being by the water, and I'm trying not to freak out that I'm not in another part of the world right now, because that's something that bothers me a bit.
That you're not in another part of the world?
Yeah, because I'm from Perth, and here I am in Perth, and it's a beautiful city, but I haven't been to a lot of the world yet.
Yeah.
And I'm curious, and I'm thinking, when am I
What's top of your mind where you want to go next, like right off the top of your head without thinking too much about it? What's the first thing you go?
Argentina.
Just to visit or to live?
To visit.
Yeah.
And then if I like it, who knows?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What would Jenny do going to Argentina? How would you plan that trip? Would you be like booking like a bus tour or something, or would you? How do you decide where to go?
I would talk to friends that have been there, because I have a few friends that have travelled across the entire continent, which just makes me feel I'm way behind.
Yeah.
I don't know, because I'm not the most spontaneous person you'll meet, but when I go travelling, that part of my personality opens up, and I'm very open to spontaneity within reason. But the best times I've had overseas, sometimes I haven't had much of a plan. I've had a loose plan. Yeah. And then you meet people and you...
So, you're like a multidisciplinary artist. You do film and installations.
I'm a multidisciplinary person.
So you wouldn't go for like an art thing, like you wouldn't be looking out for like an art exhibition that you have to see, or an art residency, or... I've
never specifically travelled to another country to see an art exhibition. It would have to be amazing. I've travelled have I? Yeah, I think I've travelled interstate. I've travelled into prefecture. I'm doing that with the bunny rabbit ears.
Air quotes.
Air quotes, that's it. When I was in Japan. But that's easy compared to here. Look, if I went to South America, it was because I was exhibiting or it was part of a festival, that would be the ultimate. That would be fantastic. I'm sort of killing 2 birds with 1 stone. I'm just genuinely curious anyway. Like, the most... maybe exotic's the wrong word, but one of the most enlightening holidays I had, where I was in a completely new environment for me, was Reunion Island. And I didn't go there because of art or cinema. I went there because of my friend's wedding. But it was great because, I'm very, very pale, as you can see. I lather myself in sunscreen, even if it's an overcast day. But I found myself walking around in the sun with my hair out, no sunscreen. I'm not a coffee drinker, but someone made me...
No sunscreen?
No sunscreen. Oh. Someone made me homemade... I don't drink coffee, but someone made me homemade coffee, and I drank it, and I'm like, wow, this is...
getting hyper.
I know, this is it. It was just quite liberating, and you find... I don't know, because it's an island country, and I felt... Everyone was speaking French. I don't speak a word of French. I was trying to teach myself while I was there, Duolingo. I got up to 2%.
Yeah.
2% French. My pronunciation's horrible. But yeah, it just brings out another side of you. And there were certain songs I was listening to, and that's a feeling I can always tap into with my writing. So even when I'm traveling somewhere, I feel, not that it's research, that sounds a bit much, but you are absorbing a lot without even realizing it. And you can use it as a resource for later, and endeavors and stuff.
Yeah, I kind of hate going places without a reason.
Really? Not even if you're just curious? Is that not enough?
Yeah. I mean, like, I at the moment, I'm trying to not spend money on, like, traveling, like, on a plane anywhere. But on the long weekends, I like to go hiking. So it's like, oh, I want to go there because it's got a mountain I want to climb.
Yeah.
So I guess that's kind of a reason, but also you're just going to see what's there.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, I probably wouldn't... I struggle to ever go, oh, I should just go somewhere just to see what's there, like on a plane.
Mm-hmm.
I'm the same. Like, if it was a wedding, if I was going there for a wedding,
yeah,
or a film festival, or, I went to Sydney once just to watch the Batman movie in the IMAX cinema.
Bloody hell. Cool, yeah.
I'm not really a Sydney fan, but they do have a real IMAX. Well, they did. I think they've shut it down now. But they did have a real IMAX cinema. So it was like, and they didn't have one per. So it's like, well, you have to go there. And I enjoyed being in Sydney for that because I had a purpose to be there.
Yeah, I once before I moved to Sydney, I went over to Sydney for the Vivid Festival.
Yeah.
I didn't know anything about it, and I was getting into installations and maybe VJing. I wasn't sure, but it was good to go over for that reason. And then it was kind of like an artistic pilgrimage. I went to Carriage Works and then the MCA, and I was just, I don't know, soaking it in. So that when I did move to Sydney, I kind of had my coordinates already.
Yeah.
But I'm totally okay with going somewhere without a plan, because I just want to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's give some context about who you are, what we do.
Mm-hmm.
What is your current, what are you currently working on? Like, what did you knock off from, what have you been working on this week? Past week?
Yeah, I'm actually challenging myself because I'm getting back into narrative storytelling, because for quite a few years I wasn't doing that. I was more interested in creating installations where, like, it's more of a dance film / art film. Like, what could I communicate without any words whatsoever? Because I really love silent cinema. A lot of the filmmakers I love that make narrative films, there isn't that much dialogue. And I think it's interesting listening to actors speak. Like Tilda Swinton, she said it was in Lynn Ramsey's film We Need to Talk About Kevin.
Yeah.
It's quite a taciturn character, and she's just reacting to all the horror that's around her, and she's not talking too much. So I was doing that for a while, and now I'm going back into... I made a short film recently that had a voiceover. Believe me, that's a big deal, because for so long I was just making films or making visual works with characters that just didn't speak. And suddenly I'm like, oh, this character is going to say something, we're going to be... And it just made me very conscious of language and being as economical as possible, because I'm someone who waffles on to the point where people look at me and say, come on, get to the point, get to the finish line, come on, girl, So I don't want my characters to be like that, because it'd be super boring. And yeah, so I like a very economical approach where you want the word to carry enough weight, and you want it to be crafted in a way where you're communicating as much as you can with very little. So I had made a short film, and now I'm working on a mini web series, which is new for me, brand new. But I do like the idea of having a character, and the main character is a woman, and we're tracking her progress over something, a challenge.
Is that your project, or is it a collaboration?
It's mine.
Yeah.
I wish
You're producing it.
Well, look, it's early days. I'm writing it right now. I would love to produce it with someone. I don't like to wear too many hats. And I would actually really love to write something with someone at some point, because you need so much motivation
to
freaking write. It's great, like, once you're in the space, once you're in the zone, but I feel guilty a lot, and I hate if the house is untidy, and I'm like, I can't write yet, the dishes haven't been done, or I can't write yet, I need to wipe the surface. I get really OCD with cleaning when it comes to writing, which is stupid. But
I think it's good practice in film and TV because in the reality in the TV world, you're like more often than not these days you're going to be working in a kind of a writer's room or you're going to be collaborating on stuff like that.
Yeah, and you just got to fucking do it. So, oh, sorry.
It's a lot easier when you getting paid to do it. You know,
that's true.
Just sit in a room and just
and
got a deadline,
kind of, and if someone's giving you a brief, this is what we need. This is the deadline. So all right, but at the same time, I really like the luxury of okay, there is no like proverbial gun to my head. This is purely for me, so I need to just be my own boss and fucking do it. And it is fun. I really immerse myself in music. I make a playlist of songs that capture the mood that I want. I look at reference images. I create this sort of like audio-visual cocoon that I enter, which is crazy because sometimes I carry that cocoon with me when I should be focusing on real-life stuff. Like, oh, yeah, I need to book that doctor's appointment. I need to adult right now. I need to be an adult, but... it's hard for me to just leave the cocoon and leave it where it is and come back to it. I always end up bringing a little piece of it with me. Yeah. But, so that's what I'm working on.
I'll put in the show notes, I'll have a link to Jennie's probably website and her Vimeo page. So you got a whole eclectic range of stuff on there.
Yeah, which I'm finally coming to terms with. I was having a bit of an identity crisis and I always felt... I hate to admit it, whatever. I always felt I struggled with calling myself a filmmaker because I had done so much art stuff. And a lot of people were like, no, it's fine. You can absolutely do both. It's okay. You don't have to get so... But I would just get very, the stupid imposter syndrome and all of that. I would struggle with that. But now I feel, what's the point? It's fine. That's what I wanted to make at that time. And that's what I made.
Where did this all begin? Like, why did you start being an artist? Like, why don't you just go and get a real job and make money and
get a real job? Yeah,
have children and with a mortgage and a white picket fence and pay for daycare and
I don't know if that was...
Sip some champagne on the balcony after work and watch whatever's on after MasterChef or something.
I do enjoy a glass of wine every now and then, but...
I'm not saying you don't. I'm just the whole
traditional...
How... I feel, especially in Perth, it's like...
Yeah.
That's kind of your destiny, really.
Well, look, I have always felt like a bit of an outsider. I think a lot of it has to do with coming to Australia when I was a kid. And I wasn't... It's funny. I met people who moved here.
Where'd you come from? That's a good place to question.
Essex. I come from Essex in England.
You're another one of these bloody Brits.
Bloody Brits, man. Yeah. But it's really funny because I do have memories. I did have like my childhood there because I did meet a girl in high school who kept saying, darling, I'm British. Even though she moved here when she was 2. I thought that was so ridiculous. I had like fucking 6.5 years on her.
So you moved here when you were 8?
Yeah, I was
8.5.
Yeah. And I had so much fun. I remember... We came here for Dad's job, and the town I grew up in, look, it's... apparently it used to be very interesting and cultural and beautiful when my mum grew up there, and then the 80s came and the local government just...
Which town is it?
It's called Grays. Grays.
Where's this?
It's in Essex.
Oh, this is in Essex.
Yeah, and so it's not too far from London, because most, some people... Essex, Grays?
So Essex is a shire?
County.
County.
Yeah. It's by the River Thames.
Yeah.
And I didn't hang out by the Thames, but we'd go for walks down by there. And yeah, it was just... I just remember when Dad came to Australia first. He came over here for a year. So I kind of forgot that for a year, Dad wasn't in the house. He was, in a different hemisphere. And Mum was very strong. She just was like, okay, this is what we're doing. And then we came over to Perth for 3 weeks, and Dad's like, this is going to be a new home. We're like, all right. And then I remember when we were finally ready to move to Australia, I just went up to all my friends and I said, I'm moving to Australia. Guess how long I'm going for? Oh, no, I didn't even say I'm moving. I'm like, I'm going to Australia. Guess how long I'm going for? And they would say 3 weeks, 5 weeks. And I'd look at them and be like, 5 years. Because we didn't know how long Dad's contract would be. And it was just the look on their faces. I just loved it. I was a bit of a show pony. I wanted to be special. And then my favourite thing to do when we moved over to Australia, whenever we had relatives or friends visiting from England, I would give them a massive list of absolutely every single thing that could kill them. Spiders, snakes, sharks, jellyfish, and the sun. And that was horrifying. That was my version of a horror film when I was 8. And I didn't know skin cancer existed. I didn't know you could die from the sun. Are you joking? So when... It's like my universe imploded and also the teacher was terrible. She was our health teacher and she scared the absolute shit out of me because her way of demonstrating statistics was to go around the classroom and be like, okay, so 25, I don't know what she pulled this figure out from. This was 96. 25% of the population will be impacted by skin cancer or blah, blah, blah. She literally went, 1, 2, 3, 4. One of you's going to die. 1, 2, 3, 4. One who's going to die. And I just sat there like, what? I was so upset that my parents brought me to a country where the sun could kill me. And I was crying. I started crying in the middle of class. And then the next lesson, the teacher had to be like, now, I know that some students were very upset, so we won't talk about skin cancer today. And I was like, that was me. I don't know what the question was anymore, but that's...
What's your origin story?
Oh, okay, well...
You came to, what? You came to Perth, and you're in a new country. I assume you don't have any friends.
Yeah. So I had to make new friends and...
Did you go to a public school?
Lost my... Yeah. But we had a bit of a tree change because we went from some normal concrete suburban whatever to a house surrounded by trees.
Yeah.
Near Yorgerson Park, near the Bibbulmun track.
Oh, wow.
In Kalamunda.
Yeah.
So with a swimming pool and a massive driveway. It was boom, and just seeing Dad chopping wood and then he got chased by a redback spider screaming. It was just like, where are we? It was fantastic. So, look, it wasn't as if we moved from England to somewhere super exotic, but oh my gosh, it was pretty exotic.
Yeah.
Pretty big change.
City, was it? Were you like in the city? You said you were in a town. Is it part of?
Not
part of the urban superstructure of London or something.
Well, not really. It's a small town, not too far from London. I don't know, working class town. I don't know how to describe it. I don't want anyone from Grays somehow listening to this. They're like, that bitch.
Did you go back there?
My nan still lives there. Okay. So the last time I was there was a few years ago. But even I spoke to my nan last night and she says, I mean, she lives in Grays. And she said, I feel so bad whenever you come and visit me, Jen, because there's just nothing to do here. I'm like, Nan, it's okay. I go there to see you. Yeah. Anyway, so I've always felt like a bit of an outsider, and even when I was 18 and I moved to Japan, I think I did that for a reason. I just thought, I love Perth, but there's a big world out there. So I've never... What I'm trying to say is... I was 18 when I...
Because that's a big... When you're people browsing your website or your Vimeo, there's a big sort of Japanese influence on your work.
There is. There's a massive Japanese influence, and I'm wondering if I had... moved to Jamaica or moved to South America, I think it would have been the same. I don't think it was... I was just at such a young age that when I moved there, I absorbed everything like a sponge.
So you were like, instead of going straight to university, you went to Japan?
Yeah. I remember having that argument with my dad. He wanted me to go straight to uni. And I didn't really... I look back and think, I probably should have studied harder with my final exams. Like, I did okay, but not fantastically. And I just knew... I just needed to get out. I knew I needed to see a bit of the world. So, yeah, all through year 12, I was looking at... year 11 and year 12, I was looking at exchange programs. I was like, okay, I want to try Germany or I'll go to Ireland. And that didn't happen. And so as soon as I graduated from high school, I was thinking, okay, where am I going? That was on my mind. So, yeah... moved to Japan at 18 and I became a teacher.
Okay. So you got the job before you left, or you?
Yeah, I had to get the job. And I didn't have a degree, obviously, because I didn't even go to uni at that point. And it really restricted where I could teach, because you need a degree to teach in Europe. And that's where my parents wanted me to go, just in terms of, you know, it being safer and closer to England, close to my family who are still there. And Japan, for most of the companies, you need a degree.
Yeah.
So for a while, I had my sights set on Shanghai.
Yeah.
My parents were a bit worried. And then we found a company in Japan that took working holiday visa workers. So I applied, and they put me in Ibaraki Prefecture because, you know, they ask you, where do you want to teach? Tokyo, Osaka, maybe even like Fukuoka and Kyushu, the main cities. And I knew if I ticked those, I'd be on a waiting list. So I ticked the anywhere box, and they literally put me anywhere.
Yeah.
I was put in, I call it the Geraldton of Japan.
Okay.
So that's where I was.
Wow.
Most people, they say like Ibaraki.
Yeah.
And they say, why? Like even Japanese people are like, why did you go there? I say, I didn't choose it. I was put there. But it's under Hitachi, you know, all the products. Hitachi City. It's actually a very small city, but that's the closest city, quote unquote, where I was. So I was there, and I had my own apartment, and I had my job, and I had a lot of free time. I did heaps
As in
of
they gave you one?
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Yep. So, yeah, it was a pretty big change. I lived by the sea, which was awesome.
I mean, this is a very a period of time when, you know, everything's kind of exciting. Like, is there a dating scene there? Like, what were you...
Yeah, of course.
What was the social life like?
Social life was great because I was suddenly hanging out with... Okay, look, I went to an all-girls private school. My friends, we, you know, same demographic. Yeah. Which is fine. But, again, I was hungry for more. Yeah. And suddenly I had friends from Jamaica. I had friends from America, friends from Canada, friends from Hong Kong.
In Japan?
Yeah, in Japan. Okay. They all went over there. Friends from Russia.
All to teach?
Yep.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
Okay. And you're all in, like, the same apartment building?
No. No. The company I worked for, it was more of like an after-school care club. Some classes were so ridiculous. I was teaching, again with the air quotes, 2.5-year-olds. I was teaching babies. They couldn't even speak Japanese. It's hilarious. But we were all... So you have a prefecture, and everyone gets... The company I worked for, you're assigned 4 different classrooms. Yeah. And I was in the most northern part of the prefecture of Ibaraki. So I was living by myself. Like my friend lived... It was a 20-minute train ride away. So that was where my closest friend lived.
How did you guys meet? Or were they friends from Perth?
Oh, no. When I'm saying friends, I mean from the same company.
Yeah.
Sorry, I should say colleagues. But they all became friends. It was a really sort of...
And you met through the company?
Yep, we met through the company. Yeah. And then you just make friends because it really depends on your personality and how outgoing you are. I mean, I made friends because there was a local Christian university and I was using the internet for free. I was pretending to be a student, and I would sneak in, and they didn't require any login or passwords. And it was, I got singled out because the girl before me, she is, I think, Chinese-Canadian. Okay. So she was often mistaken for a Japanese person. So she could sneak into that university library and no one would bat an eyelid because she looked Japanese. Yeah. Whereas I walked around and people were like, who is this girl? And then the exchange students from America, they saw me and I saw them and they were trying to figure out who I was. Like, this is us. Like, this is it. So who's this girl? And then we got talking and, and so I just made friends through all sorts of different situations and friends of friends and
So did you go on holidays while you're there?
Mm-hmm. I went to Hong Kong. I went around Japan. Like I've explored way more of Japan than Australia, but that makes sense because it's all within close proximity and it's much cheaper to travel around. And I did a lot of solo traveling as well. And Japan is fairly safe, so you can
because this is if I'm going to go to Japan, I want to do a railway tour, like not use a plane apart from getting there.
Yeah,
is that do you just get on a train and go places? Obviously, went to visit your friend, but
well, you get they do offer special deals, especially in summer, which are like a rail pass. Yeah, so you get the rail pass. You can. I don't think you can get like you definitely can't get the Shinkansen with it, the bullet train. very expensive, but you can get regular trains and you just sort of have a good book or a good podcast and get on a train and go from prefecture to prefecture.
So the bullet train's kind of like booking a flight in terms of expense.
Yeah, I mean, it's fantastic. I did it once with my parents and we went from Tokyo to Kyoto, and I remember we saw Fuji-san, and it's like, there it is. It's pretty cool. Sorry, Mount Fuji. I'm getting all... Yeah, anyway. So I guess I just had my camera with me at all times, and I started to make little travel videos, but not like the ones we see with vloggers today, like, hey, I'm Jennie and I'm in Tokyo and I'm going to eat some ramen and rah. Like, it wasn't like that. It was more just getting all these different angles, framing things as interestingly as I could, and then putting it all on the timeline and choosing the right music. It was more, but it wasn't a music video either. It was just more like I don't know, like mini barakas. I don't know, mini samsaras. It was just me trying to... Like, my favorite one was going to Nikko, which is a place in the Tochigi prefecture, which is famous for... It's just a beautiful collection of shrines in mountains and forests, temples and shrines, and a massive tourist attraction. And there's so much... It's because it's in the forest, and Japan is such a... When I say seasonal country, it's so colourful, you know, and fantastic for postcards. My God, like spring, you've got the cherry blossoms, right? It's only for 1 week, so you've got to be fast in spring. Summer, it's really lush, really green. Autumn, it's called koyo, which translates to leaf hunting, because it's a hobby where you just look at all the foliage because the colors are so vibrant. And then winter, it usually snows. So it's just white purely, and that you got to be careful with the dry ice, because I've fallen many times. Just really scary. But yeah, it's I went during autumn to Nikko, and I remember filming as much as I could, and I happened to film, I don't know what her role was, but she was a woman in a kimono, and she was running from one shrine to the next, who knows what. But it was like my framing, like I had one shrine on one side, the other shrine on the other side, and this like little, I don't know, passageway that connected with a window. So you could just see her running through, and I captured it, and I'm like, yes, like just little moments like that.
And this was what, on your weekend?
Yeah, just a day off. So I did so many day trips. It's a real sort of day trip kind of country, and everyone takes the train, and I just went with 2 other friends. I had a friend who was really into photography, another friend that just wanted to go and explore, and I had my like massive, well now it's massive Sony camera, old school with like the little DV tapes. Yeah. You know, and so I would just do that. And I kind of knew I was prepping myself for uni, and it kind of whet my appetite for visual storytelling, so that when I got to uni, I had a sense of stylistically the kind of films I like. And also while I was in Japan, I had a lot of downtime when I wasn't teaching. I watched so many films. I just went, there was a local, it's called Tsutaya, I think, if I remember correctly, and you just, you know, hire heaps of CDs and DVDs. This is way before, like, this is, I'm showing my age. Yeah. But, you know, it was like the culture of DVDs, and there was just something about living in this apartment and being far away from home and just making this decision, like, okay, no one knows me here, and I can kind of reinvent myself. Not reinvent, but like just, I don't know, like I just felt free in that sense. So I was watching a lot of films that maybe I wouldn't have watched here. I don't know. I just watched everything. And, you know, even Japanese films, I went to film festivals, exhibitions. I just soaked it up like a sponge. And I also, I don't know, because then I went back to Japan a few years later as a student. And that's when I really started to go to, like, I went to my first and only Buto theatre performance, which had a massive impact on what I do. I was describing it to someone the other day, and it's where the Buto performer, it's an underground dance form that was created after World War II. And it was to shock the audience and to like, don't be so complacent, especially Japanese people. Don't be so complacent. Think about what's around you. So they really wanted to shock, and they did that. And they would sometimes perform naked, and they cover their bodies head to toe in white, like white paint, white body paint, and they perform their dance with their eyes rolled back into their heads, which was really something to see for an entire show. I don't know how they did that. It kind of looks like something from a horror film.
Yeah.
But they're contorting their bodies and kind of writhing on the ground, and it's very strangely sexual as well. So you're kind of a little confused watching it, going, this is like horror, like erotic horror or something. It's just really out there, and you kind of forget that you're in Japan, where it's very conservative in a lot of ways. But then kind of crazy, like batshit crazy, and you can see that in their animation. Just watch Akira.
Yeah.
You're like, what the fuck is this? This is crazy. It's awesome, or their music. It's all there. So I kind of like that duality with Japan, like very polite and conservative, like to the point you can't really say your real opinion, but then watch some of their films and it's just crazy.
So how long are you there for?
On and off. I've lived in Japan over 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
But that first stint?
A year and a half.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you came back and enrolled in university?
Yeah, it was an exchange program. Yeah, I was studying Japanese here, and I had such a great Japanese teacher, and she said, look, no one else is studying film in Japanese. You should go for the scholarship. You have a good chance of getting it. And I did, and she was right. And so that's when I went back.
To Japan?
Yep.
Okay.
And I studied in Tokyo this time, Hachioji.
And were you speaking Japanese?
Yeah. I had classes. My Japanese got really good. It's kind of shit again, but I'm working on it. But it got good because I was immersed in it. And I could go to parties and just find myself having conversations. And Japanese people, you got to be careful though. They're very, very, very polite. You could say like, konnichiwa. And they're like, oh, nihongo jozu. Like, your Japanese is fantastic. And it's like, don't bullshit me. Even the first time I went skiing, which was horrendous. I don't even like to think about it. But I went up to Hokkaido where, powdery white snow they all talk about. And I told my friend, I said, look, I've never been skiing in all my life. I need lessons. And she's like, no, you'll be fine. So she got me on a ski lift and we went to the top of the mountain. It was awful. I ended up taking off my skis and just walking because I'm like, I'm going to die.
Yeah.
I'm going to plow into a tree because I didn't even know how to turn. And she kept telling me, no, you're good. And I was getting really pissed off because I'm like, I know I'm not good. I've fallen down 10 times. I've hit my head on the snow. I'm not good. And then later she said, yeah, you're not very good. And I said, I know. So stop telling me.
Yeah.
In fact, so that's just the extent of how polite they can be. Yeah. But what was I saying? Anyway, yeah, it's a big part of my life. But at the same time, I kind of get a bit tired of the whole romanticism of Japan.
Yeah.
It's not a paradise. There are a lot of social issues and a lot of things I don't agree with. And I feel the same way about Australia. And yeah, I remember I had a Japanese boyfriend and he just at one point said, he almost like, because I was in Japan still, he's like, if you don't like it so much, you can go back home. Because I was just, talk about feminism, good Lord, that's a whole different conversation. But yeah, I love Japan, but I see it as a complete country. And I see it as, and like every complete country, you're going to have healthy criticisms. Yeah. There are social issues that are a problem, and my favorite filmmaker, Koreeda, his most recent film, Shoplifters, I think that won the Palme d'Or. Mm-hmm. He makes films about these issues, and not in a heavy-handed way, which is why I love him. He creates films about people barely, like, just surviving outside of poverty, and they're forced to shoplift, or these children that were abandoned by their mother and they have to fend for themselves and they don't want to go to the authorities because they know they'll be split up and put into different families, and it's a slow burn watch and it's really painful to watch, but I'm glad at least one filmmaker is going there. And I'm sure there are more. I'm no expert on Japanese cinema, not for a while. I haven't watched many Japanese films recently, but I know there's that one filmmaker. Oh, and Kurosawa, not Akira, Kurosawa Kiyoshi, I think that's his name. He's also making films about, I think there's one about a family and I don't know if it was an epidemic, but there was this problem where the head of the household, a man, the father, was made redundant or was just fired, and the whole family would kill themselves.
Yeah.
or he would kill himself, and the family's left destitute. And from what I recall, I don't think the film goes there, but it does look at, what's next, for a man that's been made redundant. It's, and then we need those films as much as we need all the really fantastic, out there, crazy, bombastic movies. It's also good to shine, like, people need to feel that they're not being left behind, or at least their story is being told.
Yeah.
As soon as you start to feel too isolated, all sorts of shit starts to happen. So
you're sort of starting to make films because that's sort of what you're studying. You're studying Japanese cinema in university? Well,
no, I wasn't studying Japanese cinema, but I was studying cinema
in Japan.
Yeah, that was one of the classes. So basically when I was over in Japan, I studied the language, the culture, just linguistics in general, which was pretty complex actually. And then a few classes were about cinema. One in particular was about cinema, and that was really cool. Like I saw, what's his name? Ozu, who did Tokyo Story and An Autumn Afternoon. He's a really prominent Japanese filmmaker, and I guess he became quite notorious for really like static shots, and there's a lot of harmony and balance in his shots and not a lot of movement. But then this director was showing us some of his really early work, like before the war, black and white, silent films.
Mm-hmm.
But there was a lot of movement, camera movement, and it was quite cheeky and comical. So to see that origin and the sort of films he made in his twilight years was really, really interesting. So, oh my God, and I think I saw a scene from a Pink Eiga, which was a massive movement in the 70s. Erotic cinema became the thing. I forgot. Have you seen or heard of In the Realm of the Senses?
No.
Ai no Korida is like the bullfight of love is the Japanese title, and it has of course this didn't really happen, but it has a infamous scene where it's a very passionate love story between a man and a woman, and she dismembers him. Yeah, okay. I know, far out, but it's there. In the end, the film, like the love just gets too extreme. I can't remember. I'm so sorry. I saw it so long ago, but yeah, that's when, I mean, and I think it's a pretty well-known film, and it's very erotic. Like there's a scene where they're having sex and she's on top of him and she's playing the shamisen. I was watching it like, yep. Japan.
I watched this movie recently.
There are freaky films everywhere. Yeah, go on.
I think the last Japanese film I watched was called, I think it's just called House.
Oh, I've heard of House. Haven't seen it. And I think
it's pretty, like, I don't think I should take it as representative of 1970s Japanese cinema, because I think it's pretty out there for 1970s Japanese cinema.
Probably. I've heard, it has a bit of a reputation.
But it was a guy, the guy who made it, I watched the documentary about it as well, and the guy who made it, I think this might have been his first film, and he was actually a commercial director. And so it's just nuts. It's like, and it is...
It's his first film? House.
Possibly.
Yeah, cool.
And crazy. I don't know if he's done... The films he did after that never really reached as the same notoriety. But it was about a group of young girls going to a haunted house. And it was very, problematic. It would be very problematic if made today.
I love that buzzword of the century. Problematic. Yeah.
Did you ever get into SBS like that? I feel like that was a big part of my childhood. Was just
like the erotic.
As a guy, I was just flicking on to see. You might see some boobs, but then you would watch some amazing world cinema.
Absolutely.
Which I just don't get anymore.
Well, I have to thank SBS because that got me onto a lot of comedy that I love, like Garth Marenghi's Dark Place. Yeah. One of my favourites. So I know that. Also, what else was... Like John Safran. I used to watch his stuff.
Yeah.
Music Jamboree and Versus God. That was on SBS.
There's still cool stuff on SBS, but the thing was you flicked it on and you never knew what you're going to get. Right. But now I don't even have a TV plugged into an aerial, so I have the SBS app.
Yeah.
And when you're forced to go thick through and choose things, it's not the same.
It's not the same.
You're not going to discover things.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes, actually, there was... Okay, I don't think there were boobs or anything, but there was this I'm trying to find it, Japanese film that my parents, like, they were just flicking through. And it was about kamikaze pilots.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It wasn't a documentary, so it was a feature. And it from what I remember, I saw it when I just saw this ending. And I think it's like the ending of Gallipoli. I hope I'm not spoiling anything. But you know when Mel Gibson's character's trying to like hurry back and like, you don't have to go over the line. You don't have to go over the line. And then they go over and you see him get shot and you're like, no. And it just that freeze frame is horrible. But I think it was something similar. Like he was trying to tell his friend, you don't have to do this, get out of the plane. Like, it's not your turn to get out of the plane. But he misunderstands and he's just waving back like, yeah, bye. And there's a freaking about to kill himself, you know. It was something like that. Like, it's a very bittersweet, tragic ending with a hint of comedy. Because you're kind of laughing because you don't know how you're supposed to react. But, yeah, so SBS had a lot of these amazing little, like, Easter eggs. These, like, amazing random films that you wouldn't discover otherwise.
So what was your first sort of project you did out of, like, university? Like, what was your first thing, like, I'm going to do this because I want to do it?
I think the first short film, if I remember, I was actually a student in Tokyo and I just decided to make a short film. And it wasn't anything, it was outside of the curriculum. I had to just pull people together. And
you made it in Tokyo?
Yeah, I made it in Tokyo. So I met a photographer. Because I would look through them... like there were these magazines specifically for international residents. And if you flicked to the back, of course, you had like man seeks woman, you know, all of that stuff. But there was also creatives. Mm-hmm. So looking for people to work on a photo shoot, looking for people to work on a hip hop album or whatever. You know, like people just wanted to branch out and work with other people. So I met up with this photographer from, I can't remember, somewhere, maybe New Jersey. Let's just say New Jersey.
But the United States.
Yes, from the US. And he hadn't shot much video, but I said, look, I have an idea and there's not going to be too much camera movement. Would you be keen to collaborate? And I forgot how I found the actress, but I found an actress and I had help from other people and we just made it. And that was shown at the Revolution Film Festival. Yeah, but
Perth.
In Perth, yeah. So that, and it's been shown also at galleries as well, because it's one of those films where it's experimental. Yeah. So it's not narrative, and you could show it in a gallery and it would work in that space. But yeah, I was really. Do you remember that horrific murder of an Indian girl in I can't remember where in India, but she was on a bus with her male friend. They had gone to see a movie. And I think it was somewhere quite rural. Yeah. And she got literally dragged off the bus. And she was raped so badly.
It was like 30 men or something.
I think there were 5 men. And they were literally inserting things into her, like iron rods, like pulling out organs. Like, this is beyond horrific. And I just remember reading that and thinking, I just felt... It just felt so grim, and I thought, how am I on this planet with that happening? And this is, which is stupid to say, I know, because, you know, the human race, my God, we've had horrific wars, I know, but it just felt, it's weird because it's like, why aren't people talking about it? But then you talk about it and everyone just gets depressed, and it's like, well, okay, maybe talking about it constantly isn't the right thing to do, but how can we just... I don't know. I just wanted to make something that reflected the horror of violence, like real world violence. I think horror is such an interesting genre because you can look at it as, you know, because it's a genre in which we can explore taboos, like Night of the Living Dead, you know, zombies, but it's a reflection of racism in America. And it's I love it as a metaphor. But you've got zombies, you've got ghosts, monsters, all of that. But what about horror in everyday life? Like, to me, what that girl went through is the definition of horror. She died. She was killed. And I was also just looking up very extreme cases of violence, specifically targeting women. Again, not saying that men don't endure this violence, but we're looking at countries where it's irrefutable that women are treated as second-class citizens. They can't leave the house. They can't get an education. And if they try, something horrific happens to them. Their husband will cut their hand off, or they'll have acid thrown in their face, you know. This is really horrible and horrific. So I just made a short film about a Japanese girl that's reflecting on this. And the reason I did that was because I went to a global studies class at university in Tokyo. And most of the classes I took in Japan, it was me with either me with other Australians or other Austrians, which was kind of weird, or Koreans and Chinese students. And we're learning the language or learning about, you know, seasons and festivals and all that. But now I was in a class full of Japanese people talking about AIDS in African countries, like the rising rate of AIDS in African countries and inequality and like really, really, really interesting subjects that I just hadn't really seen. You know, it was so great to see that. Like, of course they discuss it, but I was just stupid to I was just kind of like, oh yeah, of course they do. And so I thought, instead of having a film about a Japanese girl, I was like, I don't know, I love that boy and I want him to ask me out, or, I want to be a journalist or something. I thought, well, what if it's about a girl that's reflecting on all this horrific shit? Because it doesn't matter where you are, like you're still a human being, you're still going to respond. And it's about that choice you make where because it is possible to read the news again and again and you just feel depressed and hopeless. And what is the point of that, really? Like, it is important to be informed, but is it worth losing all hope? You know, like, where's the line?
Yeah.
Where is the line? And you don't want to be ignorant and in your own bubble because you can start to become very ungrateful and detached from the world. So, yeah, it was just one of those passion projects where I thought, no, I want to make a horror film, but a psychological horror film without monsters and ghosts, just about what's happening in the world. And so, yeah, that's the first film I made outside of everything.
And you did that. It was all produced in Japan.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, it wasn't a feature, but it was still a big thing to organise and bring together. And
I can't. It's stressful just doing that in Perth, let alone.
Yeah.
Like.
I know.
What? Tokyo?
Yeah, in Tokyo.
Like the biggest city in the world, in a completely different language, completely different written language.
And we shot it in two different apartments as well, so that was fucking fun. And I can't remember, there were two actresses, I can't remember. I think I put a call out somewhere and I just started getting coffees with, because there was an actress who's been in films. She's actually been in feature films in Japan, and I'm like, and you want to be in this short film? Cool, all right, let's do it, because she liked the script.
Oh, awesome.
It was pretty cool, yeah. And the younger girl, she was just, I think she was a model, and she wanted to try something different, and yeah.
What was the gap between coming back to Perth and moving to Sydney? Like,
oh, yeah, so I had I graduated, and I had a year and a half. Yeah, it was a year and a half.
So where did you graduate from?
ECU.
ECU?
Yeah. And after I graduated, I started to get work. Like, I was hired to create video work for an opera. And that was for a production of The Emperor of Atlantis.
In Perth?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
In Perth. That was really cool. And I was also exhibiting. So I had created a video installation as like my graduate piece. And I was showing that at different places in Perth. I also created another installation for the Fringe Festival here. Yeah. I showed...
And where do you show that?
Where?
Yeah, for a Fringe Festival. What is that? Did you have to set up your own environment?
Yeah, it was called... the company organising it was called Jumpstart, and it was at this former, like, noodle restaurant, but they had converted it to, like, there was a theatre space, and the lobby was... They had this, like, all these different nooks and crannies in the... you know, the lobby, like a hotel, you know, and they can use or an airport, you know, and they use the space for some art. So they were like, you can use this space and create something. I said, great. So I did that. And
so they commissioned you, or you were looking for something to do in the
No,
Fringe?
Unfortunately, it was one of those, like, exposure. I was commissioned for the opera, of course, which was fantastic, but this other one I did, it was more like, look, we really don't have much of a budget, but we'll help you with the press release, and you have the space. And
how did they find you to do it?
My friend was working at Pika, and I think she was on the board. Okay. And she really liked my installation, so she put my name forward, and then I got in touch. So I did that. I also worked for... I started working for film festivals. I worked for the Japanese Film Festival as like a volunteer coordinator, and then I worked at the Revelation Film Festival as a volunteer coordinator and a guest liaison officer. Dual role. Fucking hell. That was pretty intense. And I was also, while I was working at Revelation Film Festival, I was also working at The Big Issue, with my day job, where I also did made a promotional video for them, like interviewing the vendors. And I was also working on the opera work. So that was a really crazy time. Yeah. And I was getting prepared to leave Perth to move to Sydney. So that was insane. So I did lots of odd jobs after uni, but they were, moving towards paid video work, which was cool. And then I moved to Sydney, and it was a lot more expensive over there. My God. So
you went there for work?
No, I moved there with a boyfriend at the time.
Okay.
We just... he's not from Australia, and he wanted to move to Sydney because he was trying to get a job in IT, and he's like, look, I got more chance over there. And we were either split on Melbourne or Sydney. I was like, well, Melbourne is kind of where the art is, but I'll go to Sydney. So I went to Sydney. No, but it was great, and I now have a good relationship with the gallery over there, and we're still in touch, and I've different festivals, and I got to work at an agency, so I met lots of contacts through there. So, yeah, it's good. But now I'm back here.
Why? Why come back? Because it's cheaper?
No, money. No, I came back because my parents... Oh, yeah, this is the weird thing. My parents are now in Tokyo.
Okay.
Because of my dad's job. And we went through some personal things, like, illness in the family.
Yeah.
And it was just getting stressful to also look after the house over here. So I came back for that reason. So to help out family. And, it's funny because
You got cheap rent until they come back from Tokyo.
Yeah, look, who says no to that?
Yeah.
But it is a bit funny to come back to Perth, like the place I grew up in, essentially, with no family here. No one is here. It's interesting. My brother is...
Oh, right. Okay.
My brother
moved
moved back
Essex.
to the UK.
Yeah.
My parents are in Tokyo. Everyone else... I do have a cousin in Christchurch, but, it's a bit far.
Yeah.
So it's good. And even my dog is in Tokyo. And my cat was still here, but he was so old. So we did have a beautiful time together when I came back to Perth, but then he had to be put down. I know. It was it was horrible.
I went through that. I had to put the cat down. And it was a bit... Yeah, it was a bit of a midlife crisis for me. I'm like, well, what am I going to do now? I had a purpose before this to look after this cat. And now, So now I moved somewhere where you're not allowed pets, and I thought it'd be lonely, but I haven't been yet.
Okay. I miss my cat.
I do. I really want a cat.
Yeah.
I'm allergic to them.
Oh, bugger.
I didn't realise until the cat died and all my symptoms went away. I just thought I was one of those people with allergies. But now we'll come full circle. You're back in Perth, and you've just done a project with voiceover, a video short film.
Short film for the Cinespace film competition. So it's over at, if it gets accepted, and this is very exciting, that means Richard Linklater will be judging and might see it.
Oh, cool.
That'd be really freaking cool.
He's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Now, looking for the future, you might be moving to Argentina. You're doing a narrative films. Yeah,
so I'm moving into narrative, but I would love to collaborate with a musician and be like, what kind of visuals do you want for your live performance? All right, I'll make them. Because I did that for the opera. And, but I don't, I've seen VJs and I've seen some of it. And I don't know, I would try to bring sort of a narrative element into it. So sort of craft it carefully. And I am friends with someone on Instagram, I'm in touch with someone on Instagram who does that, and she uses After Effects and creates kind of cool visual poems to go with bands and their work. So I love that synergy between music that I love and visuals, like very abstract things. So I totally want to do that, but I also want to do narrative, and I want to do more installations and possibly look at VR. Like, to me, I don't see why I can't have, like, as you said, a multidisciplinary approach. Yeah. I just have to, as a result, be a very disciplined, hard worker. And when I have a deadline, I surprise myself. But otherwise, like I said, I can get wrapped up in the cocoon and forget about real life. And that can annoy people around me. Yeah, people who have to coexist with me. But yeah, that's my dream. It's to keep doing what I'm doing. Like when you look at my portfolio, you'll see it's a bit of everything, and I've made peace with that. And I think that's a strength I have, and it's something I want to embrace. And there'll always be a thread of something Japanese running through my work, I figure. But
until you go to Argentina and then you go,
and then
wow, this
Latin.
is other culture I've got to explore.
Totally, there'll be a Latin spice to my work.
Yeah,
Latin flavor. Yeah, so that's it, really.
Wow.
My stuff.
Well, the sun has almost set.
It is setting.
The city's kind of the last glint of the sun on the buildings is here.
Yeah.
The swans tripled for a period, but now we're back to 2. There was 8 at one stage.
We were being outnumbered.
All right. Well, where can people follow what you're doing?
Hop on my Instagram, fey.brain, fey.brain. I have my website. I have my Vimeo page.
They're in the show notes, but it's jenniefeyen.com, I'm guessing.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes. Revamping my website, but that's all right because my old one's still there for now. And yeah, you'll see I separate my work between film and art. To me, that's just the easiest way to compartmentalize what I do, but there is a crossover and I love it. I love it all. I love it all. I want to do it all. You
can follow Jemish Fem at jemishfem.com. Follow Jennie at jenniefeyen.com.
Yeah.
We'll catch you around. Oi.
Bye.